Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Tuesday, March the 4th, the big night of the speech. President Trump will be speaking tonight. It's not technically the State of the Union because it's his first one, but nevertheless, it's a big speech. And, he's going to the speech tonight with one really good news, and that is that President Zelensky of Ukraine came out and pretty much gave President Trump what he wanted, not only the approval of the agreement, but at the same time the letter saying that what happened at the White House was a mistake and so on. So I think that worked out real well for both sides. Look, I support Ukraine in the sense that I think Ukraine was invaded. Russia has been brutal with Ukraine. But that doesn't mean that, we don't have a say or at least have something to contribute to how the money is spent or that kind of thing. Obviously, we have to be concerned about how the money is spent, especially when we're spending money that we don't have. I mean, we're literally spending money of children who haven't been born yet. That's how bad this is. I mean, the deficits that we have. So we have every right to say, wait a minute, we've spent all this money. How is it going? So I really believe that this deal that President Trump has come up with the minerals is the best thing for Ukraine. It's going to put the United States in Ukraine, and that is going to give Ukraine, I believe, not only some prosperity economically, but a much stronger sense, a much stronger guarantee than any other country can give them. And I think, this morning, before I heard the news about Zelensky agreeing to the deal, this morning, when I woke up, I learned that the prime minister of Italy had said no to troops in Ukraine. And the minute that I saw that, I knew that the whole European thing had fallen apart, that it was just a lot of talk, that it wasn't going to come through. Because if Italy doesn't put troops, okay, obviously a lot of the other countries are not going to put troops. The reality is that many of these countries do not have troops to put. So their best chance, their one and only chance, was to get the United States in there through that minerals deal. So I think it's good for the United States. We'll get some minerals, and it's good for Ukraine. And it comes the day that President Trump is going to speak to the nation. So I'm sure he'll talk about that, and he'll explain his position on Ukraine, which is, I think, the right one. We got to end this war. It's not going anywhere. We got to end it. So I think that's good. He also starts out with some pretty good presidential approval numbers. He's roughly at 50% when it's all said and done. He's at 50%. The country's divided. It was divided during the election. I mean, yes, he did win the popular vote, but the reality is that it was a point and a half, roughly what you're seeing in these approval ratings. He did win all the states that he had to win. He won the counties. So it was a great victory. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But we're still a divided country. So the fact that he's at roughly 50% approval, that's what you would expect with someone like President Trump. But I mean, he's doing well. He's doing well. And when you get into the topics, when you get into the issues, that's where his numbers go up, especially on the border, on foreign policy, and so on. So I think he walks in a pretty strong political position at a time when, frankly, the Democrats are very weak. I don't know how else to say it. They're very, very weak. The Democrats right now are very weak. They don't really have an opposition leader. They don't really have anybody. They don't even have a message. I mean, we just saw the Democrats in the U.S. Senate vote. All the Democrat senators voted against the bill protecting young women in sports. I mean, even their own members of the Democrat Party support the idea that men and women should play separately in sports. But yet they couldn't go against the left wing of their party and vote for this measure. So he comes in, my point, with a very strong position. He's also has another victory in Panama, where the Panamanian government has agreed to get the Chinese out. And with respect to now this situation with the tariffs, he's going to have to explain that tonight, because uh, for a time, the Democrats may win the argument that the tariffs are going to drive up prices, and they will for a short time. But I think eventually what you're going to see is more and more, particularly if these tariffs hang around for a while. I think what you're going to see is more companies will move into the United States, like we just learned about Honda moving into Indiana, the chip company moving into Arizona. So I think the more that the American people see that, I also think that the American people need to understand that our economic relationship with Mexico and Canada is not as big for us as it is for them. Exports to the United States represent 20% of the Canadian GDP, 37% of the Mexican GDP. So that's a lot of dollars if you think about it. So if all of a sudden, we're forcing them to pay more to sell in our market or pay tariffs, that's going to have a huge impact on their economies. I think a lot more on Mexico. Mexico, I mean, they are going to face a very difficult crisis. I mean, especially in manufacturing. I was listening to a businessman in Mexico say that you could have entire companies go under because of this, because they simply won't be able to compete. So, I mean, then of course the question is what happens, in 5 or 6 months. I think you're going to see devaluations of the Mexican peso and even the Canadian dollar to compensate for the tariff. So, I'm not a fan of tariffs, but I am going to give President Trump the benefit of the doubt on this. I want his plan to work out. Let me give his plan a chance to work out. I'm not going to jump to theoretical conclusions about tariffs and free trade. Let's wait about 6 months and see where we are. Obviously, if the inflation is not taken care of, President Trump is going to pay a political price. Not so much him, but the Republicans in 2026. And keeping the House in 2026, that is crucial. Because if the Democrats take over the House, they have no chance to take over the Senate. In fact, they may lose a couple of seats in the Senate. But the House is very close. It could go either way. And if the Democrats were to take over the House, then you're going to see all kinds of stupid investigations and probably impeaching Trump. And, you could have the kind of circus that we had, especially in the last 2 years of the first Trump term. So it's important that they keep their eye on the ball as far as the economy. I think they will. There's some good people in that cabinet. I'm very impressed with the Secretary of Treasury and the economic team around President Trump. So I'm going to give President Trump the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these tariffs. I'm going to just sit back for a second and say, okay, let's see this plan unfold rather than just criticize it, based on some economic theory. Let's see his plan unfold. And let me check with you in about 6 months. Let's say roughly September, Labor Day. Let's see where we are with all of these tariffs and all of these things. By the way, there's a lot of talk about how the stock market has gone down. It's gone down if you look at the numbers, but when you look at the percentages, it's only down 1.1%. So, I mean, that's not a crash. I mean, that's not even a bad day. It's not a good day, but it's not a bad day. It's not like, October 1987, for those of us who remember, or April 2000, when you had this big, massive drops in the stock market and much higher percentages than what happened today. So let's give President Trump a chance here with these tariffs and see where we go with it. If it doesn't work out, then they'll have to adjust it. But if it works out, hey, power to them. And if it brings a lot of manufacturing back to the United States, well, that's even better. That's even better. I think that's the Trump objective, by the way, is to bring more manufacturing back to the United States. And in the case of Mexico, I think his objective, aside from the border and all of that, I think he also wants to see China out of North America. He doesn't want China to use Mexico to get into the U.S. market. So that's another thing that that he is working on. So let's give it a chance. Let's wait till about Labor Day and see where we are. But let me leave you today with a little anniversary news. It was on this day in 1952, so that makes it, what, 73? Yeah, 73 years ago, that Ronald Reagan and Nancy Davis were married in Los Angeles. Ronald Reagan at the time, I believe he was already president of the union, the Actors Union. And I don't know what Nancy Davis was doing. I know they made a movie together, but I don't know whether that was after or before they got married. But they were married on this day back in 1952. So that makes it 73. They would celebrate their 70. Well, not celebrate. They're both passed away, of course. But we remember that they were married 73 years ago today. Ronald Reagan and Nancy Davis, who, of course, we know what happened. He became president and she became First Lady of the United States. So Ronnie, as she used to call them, Ronnie and Nancy, great couple. They were just an absolutely great couple. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later.